They were the faces we invited into our homes every week. The good old boys, the family band, the kids in the basement. We knew their catchphrases, their songs, their smiles. But off-screen, the years brought heartbreak, scandal, and for some, a cell door. So what really happened to them? Let's begin with the Dukes of Hazzard. By the time he was cast as Sheriff Roscoe P. Coltrane in 1979, James Best had been working in Hollywood for close to 30 years. He had ridden alongside James Stewart in Fire Creek, taken second billing beside Paul Newman in Arthur Penn's The Left-Handed Gun, and guest starred on The Twilight Zone, Rawhide, and Gunsmoke. Roscoe, the corrupt, sputtering sheriff with a giggle you could hear from 4 counties away, was, at 53, the role that would define him. He played Roscoe for all 7 seasons and 147 episodes of The Dukes of Hazzard, chasing Bo and Luke through cornfields, over creeks, and off the sides of hills. Off camera, he taught acting to younger performers. Burt Reynolds, Clint Eastwood, Farrah Fawcett, and Lindsay Wagner all cited him as one of the most patient teachers they ever had. He kept working through his late 70s, in Christian films, independent features, and the occasional Dukes reunion. He died in Hickory, North Carolina, in April 2015, of complications from pneumonia. He was 88. His giggle, QQQQ, lived on, in reruns and in the imitations of everyone who had ever tried to explain to a child why grown-ups love this show. Sorrel Booke was one of the most educated people ever to play a Southern television villain. He held degrees from Columbia and the Yale School of Drama, had served as an intelligence officer in the Korean War, and spoke 5 languages, including Japanese and Russian. By the time he arrived at the Dukes of Hazzard in 1979 to play Jefferson Davis' Boss Hogg, he had already spent 20 years on Broadway and in serious dramatic film work. Boss Hogg,
on the fairgrounds, what was a star attraction laid up in the hospital back in Cedar City.
the white-suited, cigar-chomping commissioner of Hazzard County, was a role he took at first purely for the paycheck. He grew to love it. Over 7 seasons and 147 episodes, he built one of the great comic sitcom villains of American television, playing him with a knowing wink that suggested the actor was in on the joke his character never was. He died of colorectal cancer in Sherman Oaks, California in February 1994 at 64. He was the first of the show's main cast to go, less than a decade after the series ended. Fellow cast members remembered him afterward as the least like his character of anyone in the ensemble. Quiet, well-read, and endlessly patient with the younger actors on set. Denver Pyle received his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame less than 2 weeks before his death. The date was December 12, 1997. 13 days later, on Christmas morning, he died of lung cancer at 77 at his home in Burbank. He had spent 50 years playing patriarchs and lawmen and old-timers on American television. He was Briscoe Darling on The Andy Griffith Show. He was in John Ford's The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. He appeared alongside John Wayne in Cahill U.S. Marshal and in nearly every long-running Western series of the era: Bonanza, Gunsmoke, The Lone Ranger, The Rifleman. On The Dukes of Hazzard, from the pilot in January 1979 to the finale 6 years later, he was Uncle Jesse Duke, the moral center of the show, the man Bo and Luke came home to, the one who kept the family shine running out of the barn. His obituary in the Washington Post included a note from fans who had followed him for decades. Even after the show ended, letters still arrived at his home addressed to Uncle Jesse. He had, they said, become a family member of theirs, whether or not he had ever met them. On the night of February 2, 1959, at the Surf Ballroom in Clear Lake, Iowa, Buddy Holly's bass player gave up his seat on a small plane so that a sick friend could get some rest instead of riding the freezing tour bus. He was 21 years old and his name was Waylon Jennings. Before the plane took off, he and Holly traded a dark joke. Holly said he hoped Waylon's bus would freeze up, and Waylon said he hoped Holly's plane would crash. The plane crashed. Holly J.P. Richardson and Richie Valens were all killed. Jennings carried that joke with him for the rest of his life. He would go on to record more than 60 albums, help invent what became known as outlaw country, and in 1979, agree to narrate a new CBS television series about two cousins running from the law in a red 1969 Dodge Charger called the General Lee. He also wrote the theme song, Just the Good Old Boys Never Meaning No Harm. He died in Arizona in February 2002 at 64 of complications from diabetes. He was by then one of the most influential country musicians of the 20th century, and still on rare occasions, willing to talk about that night in Clear Lake. For most of Season 5 of The Dukes of Hazzard, the Duke boys were not Bo and Luke. They were their cousins Coy and Vance. Coy was played by Byron Cherry. Vance was played by Chip Mayer. The reason was a contract dispute. Tom Wopat and John Schneider had walked in the summer of 1982 over a fight with CBS about profits from Duke's merchandise, and the network's response was to write them out and drop in two new cousins. Ratings collapsed. The Duke boys came back for the final 4 episodes, and Mayer and Cherry were quietly written out. Mayer went on to smaller roles in independent films for another decade: Steel Justice, Prison Planet, a handful of others. He died in July 2011 at 57. He is one of the youngest members of the Dukes cast to have died. Peggy Rhea was one of the few people in Hazzard County who ever intimidated Boss Hogg. She played his wife Lulu, a woman who genuinely loved him and could see through every scheme he tried to hide from her. Rhea had begun her career as an MGM production secretary in the 1940s, made her first on-screen appearance in an I Love Lucy episode in 1952 playing a nurse, and worked steadily for the next 6 decades. Older viewers knew her as Rose Burton on The Waltons, and later as Grace Kelly's mother-in-law Jean on Grace Under Fire. She also had recurring parts on All in the Family, Have Gun Will Travel, and Step by Step. She died in Toluca Lake, California in February 2011 at 89, ending a career that had begun before the Dukes of Hazzard was even an idea in television. On the afternoon of June 26, 2025, Rick Hurst died unexpectedly at home in Los Angeles. He was 79 and had been scheduled to appear at a Dukes of Hazzard fan event in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, the following month. The statement announcing his death called it shocking. He had been with the surviving cast just the week before. Hurst had played Deputy Cletus Hogg, Boss Hogg's mildly slower, mildly kinder cousin, starting in the 2nd season, when Sonny Schroyer's Eno Straight left for a short-lived spin-off. He had grown up in Houston, worked steadily through the 70s on Sanford and Son, The Partridge Family, MASH, and Happy Days, and later appeared in Steel Magnolias and In the Line of Fire. His son Ryan, the actor best known for Sons of Anarchy, survives him. Ben Jones, Cooter of Cooter's Place, put out a statement that afternoon that ended, "I don't know about y'all, but I can see Rick up there in heaven with Jimmy Best and Sorrell Book and Denver Pyle, putting on the funniest show inside those pearly gates." On the night of August 2nd, 2017, police in Waltham, Massachusetts arrested Tom Wopat at the high school, where he was rehearsing a production of the musical 42nd Street. He was charged with indecent assault and battery after a female cast member reported he had grabbed her. A search turned up 2 bags of what police believed to be cocaine. Wopat was 65. He had played Luke Duke, the level-headed older Duke cousin, the one who kept Bo out of the worst of it, for all 7 seasons of The Dukes of Hazzard. In the years since, he had built a second career on Broadway in shows like Guys and Dolls, Annie Get Your Gun, and 42nd Street itself, which he had performed some 500 times over the years. In July 2018, he pleaded guilty to 2 counts of annoying and accosting a person of the opposite sex. He was sentenced to 1 year of probation. On the cocaine charge, he admitted sufficient facts and took a continuance without a finding. He has continued to work on stage since, but the reunion tour he had been planning with John Schneider was canceled and never rebooked. On March 25, 2026, court filings obtained by TMZ showed that John Schneider's ex-wife had asked a California judge to enforce more than $2 million in unpaid spousal support against him, a debt that included some $900,000 in accrued interest. The filings were the latest chapter in a divorce that had begun in 2014 and had already, at one point, put Schneider in jail. Schneider had been Beau Duke, the younger, blonder half of the Duke boys, for all 7 seasons of the Dukes of Hazzard. In the decades since, he had played Jonathan Kent on Smallville for a decade, released more than a dozen country albums, and built his own film studio on a plantation in Louisiana that was later damaged by flooding. In June 2018, after failing to pay a $150,000 alimony bill from that divorce, he was sentenced to 3 days in Los Angeles County Jail. He was released the same day because of overcrowding, and then, at his own request, asked the court to restore the sentence. He wanted to serve the full time. His second wife, the actress Alicia Allan, died of breast cancer in early 2023. He is 66. His legal fight with his first wife continues. Tom Poston. By the time Tom Poston turned up in Kitty Foreman's kitchen as her father Bert, he had already been a familiar face on American television for nearly half a century. Newhart, Mork, and Mindy, The Steve Allen Show. He was the kind of actor who walked onto any set and felt like he had always been there. In 3 season 5 episodes, he played Kitty's quietly exasperated father. Poston had served as a B-17 pilot in World War II, flying missions over Europe before stepping in front of a camera. That history sat behind the dry delivery and the small smiles. He kept working into his 80s, married to actress Suzanne Plachette. He died in April 2007 at home in Los Angeles after a brief illness. He was 85. For viewers who had watched him on television since the 1950s, his small turn on that 70s show felt less like a guest spot than a familiar visit. James Avery. To most viewers, James Avery would always be Uncle Phil, the booming-voiced patriarch of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the man who hugged Will in that scene. But in 2004, he showed up in Point Place wearing the uniform of Officer Kennedy, a recurring police presence in 3 season 6 episodes. He brought the same authority, the same restraint, the same warmth under a stern face. Avery had trained as a poet before turning to acting. He spent most of his career in supporting roles, voice work, and television guest spots, including Star Trek, Enterprise, and The Closer. His size and presence made him the actor producers called when they needed someone who could fill a doorway. He died on New Year's Eve 2013, age 68, from complications after open-heart surgery. Fresh Prince fans mourned him publicly. Quietly in Wisconsin, a handful of viewers thought of him in that blue uniform, walking into the Foreman kitchen, and were sad in their own smaller way. Mary Tyler Moore. In the final season of That 70s Show, Jackie Burkhart landed a job working for a television host she idolized. A host, played by Mary Tyler Moore. The casting was the show's quiet wink. Of course, Jackie's hero would be the woman whose hat toss had defined an entire generation of young women. Moore had already become more than a sitcom star. Ordinary people had shown America that the smiling Mary of Minneapolis could also play a mother frozen in grief. By 2006, when she filmed her 3 season 8 episodes as the demanding Christine St. George, she was 69, still working, still sharper than the script asked her to be. She died in January 2017, at 80, of cardiopulmonary arrest complicated by pneumonia. She had lived with type 1 diabetes for most of her adult life and used her platform to make it visible. For anyone who had ever seen her smile turn up at exactly the right moment, the news landed harder than a guest star credit should. Howard Hesseman. Anyone who had heard Howard Hesseman as Dr. Johnny Fever on WKRP in Cincinnati understood why he was the obvious casting choice when the writers needed a radio station owner. As Max, the gruff head of WFPP, he showed up in 3 episodes across seasons 3 and 4. Hesseman had come up through the San Francisco improv scene in the 1960s, performing with The Committee, the satirical troupe that fed names like Rob Reiner into the industry. He carried that loose listening quality with him into every role afterward. He had played teachers, hippies, fathers, and disc jockeys, and audiences trusted his voice in all of them. In January 2022, he died from complications of colorectal surgery in Los Angeles. He was 81. WKRP fans flooded social media with photographs from a show that had been off the air for 40 years. The actor who had spent decades pretending to be on the radio left behind a sound that still felt like late nights in station wagons. Betty White. Casting Betty White as Kitty Foreman's distant, sharp-tongued mother was a small act of mischief. By 2003, America had already canonized White as everyone's favorite grandmother. Warm, twinkling, harmless. As Bea Sigurdson, in 4 episodes of season 5, she played a woman whose love for her daughter came out as judgment. The contrast was the joke. She had been in front of cameras since the late 1940s. Life with Elizabeth, The Mary Tyler Moore Show, The Golden Girls. Each phase of television had room for her. In her last decade, she became the kind of public figure whose birthdays felt like national holidays. She died on December 31st, 2021, less than 3 weeks before her 100th birthday. The country was already preparing tributes for that milestone. Instead, it mourned. For anyone who remembered her standing in Kitty's kitchen, withholding a compliment, it was strange to think the woman who had played that prickly mother had ended up loved by almost everyone who ever saw her. Tanya Roberts. Tanya Roberts had already lived a Hollywood life before she ever stepped into Donna's kitchen as Midge Pinciotti. She was one of Charlie's Angels in the final season of that show, then a Bond girl opposite Roger Moore in 1985's A View to a Kill. By the time she joined that 70s show in 1998 as Donna's free-spirited mother, she had been working in front of cameras for 2 decades. Midge was a strange and tender creation, well-meaning, often clueless, sometimes oddly flirty with the teenage boys hanging around her daughter's basement. Roberts played her with a softness that made the joke land gently. She left the show in 2001 to care for her dying husband, the screenwriter Barry Roberts, and returned briefly in 2004. In January 2021, she collapsed while walking her dogs in Los Angeles. Her death was prematurely announced, walked back, then confirmed the following night. The cause was sepsis from a urinary tract infection. She was 65. For anyone who had watched her lean against the Pinciotti screen door like the 70s had never quite ended, the strange circumstances of her passing felt cruel in a way that was hard to name. Lisa Robin Kelly. Lisa Robin Kelly played the older sister, Lori Foreman, who knew things her brother didn't yet, who came home from college with secrets, who flirted with Kelso and watched Eric squirm. She was on the show from the very first episode in 1998, and for 5 seasons, she made Lori one of the basement's quiet engines of trouble. Off camera, she had been struggling for a long time. Her drinking and drug use were visible enough by the 3rd season that producers worked around her absences, then quietly replaced her. Christina Moore stepped into the role. Kelly came back briefly in season 5, then left again. After 2003, the screen credits ran thin. She was arrested for DUI in 2010, faced allegations of domestic violence in 2012. In August 2013, she voluntarily checked into a rehab facility outside Los Angeles, telling her agent she was hopeful. She died in her sleep on the night of at 43. The coroner later ruled it an accidental overdose involving multiple drugs. She had been part of an ensemble that millions still watch every night somewhere in syndication. The reruns are the only place she still gets to be Lori, leaning in the doorway, smiling like she knew something. Danny Masterson. Danny Masterson is the only person on this list who is still alive. He is 49 and he is serving 30 years to life at the California Men's Colony in San Luis Obispo. For 8 seasons, he played Stephen Hyde, the orphaned cynic of the Foreman basement, the boy with the sunglasses and the slow smile, who lived above the garage and made the smoke circle look philosophical. He worked alongside Ashton Kutcher, Mila Kunis, and Topher Grace from 1998 to 2006, and reunited with Kutcher on Netflix's The Ranch in 2016. In late 2017, the Los Angeles Police Department confirmed it was investigating him over allegations of sexual assault dating from the early 2000s. He was written off the ranch. 3 women came forward. The first criminal trial, in 2022, ended in a hung jury. The retrial, in May 2023, ended in a conviction on 2 counts of forcible rape. That September, a Los Angeles judge sentenced him to the maximum allowed by law. He has filed an appeal and a habeas corpus petition. Both are pending. His ex-wife, the actress Bijou Phillips, filed for divorce shortly after the sentencing. He will not be eligible for parole until after 25 years served. He was the most famous person in the world for a period in the early 1970s, and he did not exaggerate when he said it. David Cassidy, who played Keith Partridge, the eldest son and lead singer of the family band, became a teen idol at a scale that modern culture has trouble producing. His fan mail ran to 10,000 letters a week. His concerts drew crowds that required riot police. He was at one point the highest paid entertainer in the world. He was 20 years old. At 21, he was telling journalists he wanted out. The problem was that getting out of that level of fame proved impossible. The teen idol image followed him into his 30s and 40s and 50s, and the distance between what he had been and what he could build afterward was a gap he never fully closed. He married 3 times. He worked in theater, in Las Vegas, in television. He attempted comebacks and found limited audiences. Financial pressures accumulated. He filed for bankruptcy in 2015, and through much of it he was drinking, heavily, secretly, in a way that those around him accepted because he was David Cassidy, and telling David Cassidy the truth was difficult. 3 DUI arrests in 5 years, 2010 in Florida, 2013 in New York, 2014 in California. After the last one, he was held overnight, placed on probation for 5 years, and ordered into inpatient rehabilitation. He told his family he had stopped drinking. In February 2017, he appeared at a concert in Agoura Hills, where he forgot the lyrics to songs he had been performing for nearly 50 years. He announced that he had dementia and retired from performing. 2 months before he died, in a phone call recorded by a documentary producer, he corrected the record. There was no dementia. It had been complete alcohol poisoning. The fact is, he said, his voice unsteady, I lied about my drinking. I did it to myself to cover up the sadness and the emptiness. David Cassidy died on November 21st, 2017, of liver and kidney failure. He was 67 years old. According to those with him at the end, his last words were, "So much wasted time." His co-star and childhood friend Danny Bonaduce later said of the drinking, "Part of alcoholism is lying. I can't be mad at David for that, but it's still a tragedy." She played Tracy Partridge, the youngest of the 5 children, the quiet one in the back of the bus who kept the beat on the tambourine while her older siblings got most of the screen time. It was a small role by design, and Suzanne Crowe played it with the unself-conscious ease of a child who had simply been given a job and was doing it. She was 7 when the show began. By the time it ended in 1974, she was 10. She did not pursue acting into adulthood with any particular drive, and by her 20s she had effectively stepped away from Hollywood entirely. She married, raised children, and lived a private life in Nevada. The kind of life that the entertainment press occasionally refers to as disappearing. Though from her perspective, she had simply made a choice. She gave occasional interviews about her time on the show, always warmly, always with the affection of someone who remembered it as a good job and a good-natured time. There was no scandal, no dramatic reversal. On April 27, 2015, Suzanne Crowe was found dead at her home in Pahrump, Nevada. She was 52 years old. The cause of death was arrhythmogenic right ventricular dysplasia, a rare hereditary cardiac condition in which the muscle tissue of the right ventricle is gradually replaced by fatty or fibrous tissue, compromising the heart's electrical function. It can be entirely asymptomatic until it isn't. The quiet Partridge child died quietly, at home far from Bayside, of a condition that gave no warning. She was the first cast member to go. Reuben Kincaid was the Partridge family's manager, perpetually exasperated, perpetually underpaid, perpetually wondering what he had done to deserve these people. And Dave Madden played him with a deadpan comic timing that anchored every episode he appeared in. He was the adult in the room in the most literal sense, older than the parents around him, more cynical than anyone on the bus, and somehow still there every week. The joke was that Reuben was a bad manager who stayed anyway. The reality was that Madden was a skilled comedian who made the premise work. After the Partridge Family, he continued to work in television through the 1980s and 1990s, with guest appearances across a range of programs. He made a cameo with Danny Bonaduce in a 1994 episode of Married Up with Children. He was not the kind of performer who generated headlines or scandal. He lived a quiet professional life after the show, the kind of career that is less visible than a fall from grace, but considerably more sustainable. Dave Madden died on January 16, 2014, in a care facility in Sarasota, Florida. He was 82 years old. The cause was complications from heart and kidney failure. His passing received relatively little coverage. He was not David Cassidy, and the culture's attention had moved on from the Partridge universe a long time ago. But for the generation that had watched him complain about the Partridges every Saturday night, his absence was felt. He came into the Partridge Family midway through its run, when the original actor playing Chris Partridge left after the first season. Brian Forster was cast in the role and stayed with the show for the remaining 3 seasons, playing the younger of the 2 Partridge boys with an easy, unassuming presence that made it easy to forget the character had ever been played by anyone else. He has said he remembers being in 4th or 5th grade, dancing around to I Think I Love You, and then suddenly finding himself on the show. The excitement, he recalled, was genuine. After the show ended in 1974, Forster did something that very few child actors of his generation managed. He built a life that had almost nothing to do with Hollywood. He made occasional acting appearances over the years, mostly outside the mainstream industry, but his more sustained interest turned out to be motorsport. In the early 2000s, he took up race car driving seriously, competing at an amateur and semi-professional level, a pursuit about as far removed from a painted school bus and family sing-alongs as it is possible to get. He is 66 years old in 2026. He does not appear at many Partridge Family reunion events, and he does not seek the spotlight. Of all the children who rode that bus, he may be the one who most successfully walked away from what it represented and built something else entirely on the other side. That is not a dramatic story, but it is, in its own quiet way, a successful one. He played Danny Partridge, the wisecracking red-headed middle son who drove the comedy of almost every episode, and he was the youngest of the main cast, 3 years junior to even Suzanne Crowe, with a natural comic timing that made him an immediate audience favorite. Off-camera, his childhood was nothing like the show. He grew up in a genuinely abusive home. He has spoken at length about the physical and emotional abuse from his father. During the show's run, cast members, including Shirley Jones, his television mother, would bring him home with them on weekends to get him out of the house. The painted bus was, in ways that mattered, safer than his real life. When the show ended in 1974, Bonaduce was 14 years old and no longer famous. The years that followed were difficult by any measure. By his own account, he lived out of his car near a dumpster in the early 1980s, homeless, still recognizable enough that people would stop him for autographs without realizing he had nowhere to sleep. He worked as a stable boy for Kenny Rogers. He trained in martial arts under Chuck Norris for 20 years, earning multiple black belts, and he used drugs. In 1985, he was arrested in West Hollywood on suspicion of cocaine possession and driving under the influence, spending 9 hours in jail. In 1990, he was arrested in Daytona Beach, Florida, while attempting to buy cocaine, a particularly stark irony given that he was in Florida to host an event for DARE, the anti-drug campaign aimed at children. He pleaded no contest and received 15 months of probation and community service. In 1991, he was arrested in Phoenix, Arizona, for beating and robbing a prostitute, an incident he has since addressed publicly. He pleaded guilty to reduced charges and paid the victim's medical bills. He eventually found stability through radio and, later, through candor. The VH1 reality series Breaking Bonaduce in 2005 documented his relationship and his struggles with something that had become almost a secondary fame, the fame of having been famous and having fallen hard and having survived it. He hosted morning radio in Seattle for more than a decade. Then, in April 2022, he woke up and could not walk. His speech was slurred. After seeing by his own count approximately 100 doctors over the course of nearly a year, he was diagnosed with hydrocephalus, a buildup of cerebrospinal fluid in the brain that puts damaging pressure on brain tissue. He underwent surgery in June 2023 to have a shunt installed. The surgery went according to plan. In December 2023, he retired from radio. He moved to Palm Springs. He is 66 years old. She played Shirley Partridge, the widowed mother who sang lead and drove the bus and held the whole enterprise together with a warmth that never felt manufactured. In real life, she was the only actual professional singer among the main adult cast, a fact the show's producers quietly acknowledged by having most of the others mime their instruments. She was also the show's moral center in a literal sense. When Danny Bonaduce's home situation became untenable, she brought him home with her. When David Cassidy needed a family connection, she was the one who provided it, despite the somewhat complicated reality that she was actually his stepmother, not just his television mother, having been married to his father Jack Cassidy since 1956. Before the Partridge Family, Shirley Jones had won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for Elmer Gantry in 1960, playing a character so far from Shirley Partridge that it remains one of the more striking range demonstrations in Hollywood history. After the show, she continued to work consistently in film, television, and stage through every decade that followed, accumulating credits across a span of time that most actors cannot imagine. In 2013, she published a memoir that was remarkable for its candor, discussing her marriages, her relationships, and the reality of her life in the entertainment industry, with the frankness of someone who had decided that at a certain age there was no reason not to be honest. She turned 90 in 2024. She is, as of 2026, the oldest surviving member of the Partridge Family cast and, arguably, the one who most clearly got out of the bus on her own terms. She played Lori Partridge, the eldest daughter, the serious one, the one who dated and argued about principles and existed in the complicated social space between childhood and the adult world the show kept gesturing toward. Susan Day was a model before she was an actor. She was cast partly on the strength of her appearance and partly on something the camera confirmed immediately, which was that she could hold a scene simply by being present in it. She was 17 when the show began. She became, alongside David Cassidy, one of the show's heartthrob figures, and the cultural expectations that came with that position were not always easy to carry. She has spoken in interviews about struggles with an eating disorder during the show's run, body image pressures that were standard in the industry at the time and rarely acknowledged as such. After the Partridge Family ended, she built a second career of considerably more substance. L.A. Law, the NBC legal drama that ran from 1986 to 1994, made her a different kind of television star and earned her 3 Golden Globe nominations and 1 Emmy nomination. It was, professionally, a fuller and more satisfying arc than the one the Partridge years had promised. Since L.A. Law, Susan Dey has maintained an almost complete distance from public life. She does not attend Partridge Family reunions. She does not give interviews about the show. Those who have worked with her describe the withdrawal as deliberate and firmly maintained. She is 73 years old. The internet has occasionally circulated claims about legal troubles in her past, but none of these have been confirmed by mainstream entertainment sources of record, and they should be treated accordingly, as the kind of rumor that attaches itself to any celebrity who has made themselves unavailable for correction. The painted school bus is in a museum now. The intro plays on streaming services for people who were not alive when it first aired. And the cast that boarded it in 1970 has scattered across 56 years of real life into addiction and arrest and illness and quiet retirement and an Academy Award and a brain surgery and a death at 67 with the words, "So much wasted time." The Partridge Family was a fiction, as all family sitcoms are. What was real was the people inside it, and what happened to them afterward. The bus kept rolling. Not everyone made it to the last stop. Which of these stories surprised you most? Tell us in the comments. And if this kind of honest look behind the television you grew up with is something you want more of, subscribing is the way to stay for what comes next.